As I mentioned, I'm going to give a little bit of background just to Ariadne first, and then do a demo. Um, so the Ariadne really came about because of the challenges which show in many disciplines, but particularly in archaeology, of data integration with multiple data sets, multiple repositories, but a situation certainly across Europe of haves and have-nots, where many countries were much further advanced than others. Uh, but also because of a problem which isn't unique to archaeology, but that a lot of our research questions demand cross-border searching. So, for instance, I'm interested in Vikings, and I want to search across data sets drawn from my own country, but also from many of the Scandinavian nations. But there wasn't an infrastructure that allowed me to do that. I'd have to do multiple searches of multiple repositories. But I wanted to give you a little bit of prehistory then about, it's an archaeological metaphor about how Ariadne came about. And it goes back to a paper presented at a CAA conference in 1992 by Henrik Jarl Hansen, then of the Danish Cultural Agency, where he had this vision, a very 1990s diagram of these sea creatures joining their tentacles across Europe, representing joining up the databases of Europe. And that led almost directly into a project which ADS led, but involved the Danish Cultural Agency and 4 other countries, where we tried to develop a prototype cross-search portal that used what is now, some of you may be familiar, very antiquarian technology now, a Z3950 library interchange protocol, and so qualified doubling core. It was a very flat file approach, but it worked. And I really like the circularity of this, because we migrated that portal in the preparing DARIAH phase of the project. So there's a sort of DARIAH prehistory to this. So in 2009, we launched, as part of a sort of demonstrator for DARIAH, as it was being founded, a version of that portal migrated to RESTful technologies, partly to demonstrate that that migration was possible. But that, after a bit of a gap, that led to Ariadne, founded by Franco Nicolucci, myself, or led by them, with 24 partners involving 18 countries. And then from 2018 onwards, extended geographically through Ariadne Plus to 41 partners, 27 countries, and beyond the map here, we were able to extend beyond Europe with partners in Argentina, Japan, and the United States. The other aspect of Ariadne Plus was also extending thematically. So the sort of dark green box there represents Ariadne. The larger box is Ariadne Plus. We were extending both in terms of geographically, that dimension, but also temporally. So the archaeology from the earliest hominids right up to the present day, with Cold War archaeology, and also extending thematically in terms of broadening the scope, so bringing in bioarchaeology, dating methods, environmental archaeology, all the subdomains. And that brings us to the present day, when Ariadne Plus wound up. Franco and I established the Ariadne RI in November 22, a not-for-profit association, now with some 34 institutional members. Not a legal ERIC, but I think we like to think of it as a bottom-up, community-driven research infrastructure. And our aims continue to be to help researchers find data and to enable cross-border resource discovery, but also via the portal to enable interoperability, both across partners, countries, data types and data schemas, thereby actually enabling research. And I hope to show that the portal can be used as a research tool in its own right. Now has over 4 million resources and growing. I think it's one of the largest digital shared digital resources available across many disciplines, and continues to grow. How we went about it, there are two aspects to the portal. There's to the knowledge base rather. There's the human interface, the portal, which is what I'm going to demonstrate today, underpinned by the catalogue. A lot of it is collection level metadata, but also down to what we'd regard as item level, so individual artifacts, individual sites. So it's one of its strengths is that sort of different levels of granularity. And that metadata links to distributed a lot of digital, in some cases, though, inevitably analog resources, and it's just providing pointers to paper archives. But the portal focuses on this triumvirate of what, when, and where, which together provide quite a powerful search tool that allows us to allows users to drill down quite quickly to a small number of records, with a particular emphasis on map-based searching, because that's quite a powerful tool for cross-searching certainly in archaeology, because a lot of our data is spatially distributed. But there is also a machine interface, as the data is held as in a triple store, and is also accessible via APIs and Sparkle queries. It's identical to what you can see in the catalogue, and means that it's available as linked open data, and allows other organisations to implement their own portals or services based upon the same knowledge base. Also, how we went about it initially, way back, Guntram Gazer from Salzburg Research Institute carried out a user needs study to find out what searches we needed to support, and that drove the design of the portal. We also looked in a sort of pragmatic way at what data was available from partners. So this is sort of low-hanging fruit, where partners were providing a critical mass of item level data where there was going to be a real research benefit from interoperability and joining them together. And we defined these as what we called ARIADNE resource types. So it included things like fieldwork reports, information about sites, information about artifacts. So those provided the different levels really of cross-search in the portal. Ontology-wise, it's all underpinned by CDOC-CRM. Our AOCAT ontology is a subset of that. So that provides this sort of object-oriented data structure showing how the data types are related. And the key way that we supported the what, when, and where is the what. We agreed quite early on that we would all adopt the Getty Art and Architecture thesaurus. So rather than try and map every European and international subject to thesaurus to every other, which would have been impossible ultimately now with the number of data sets, we adopted this sort of common spine, and every partner providing data has to map their own vocabulary to the Getty AAT, and that's proved really successful, actually, almost surprisingly successful, covering quite a range of not just types of archaeology, but treading into other areas. The when we handle with a collaboration with a US project funded by the NEH called Periodo. Archaeologists can never agree from when a particular period starts and ends. So, and with good reason, because the Iron Age in England is different from the Iron Age, it has a different start and end date to the Iron Age in Scotland, certainly to that in France or other parts of Europe. But if you use the cultural term Iron Age, you should be able to say when it starts and ends in your own country or region. So as long as you do that, then that allows us to use that set of web definitions as URIs to, when a data provider said this is an Iron Age site, we know when it starts and ends, so we can have a cross search in absolute years. And the where finally is the easy one, in the sense that we just insisted everybody adopted the ISO WGS 84 standard, the latitude, longitude. The technical architecture is really encapsulated in this slide, with the sort of pipeline running through here. So the core of it is the triple store in GraphDB. The data feeding into that comes in through XML metadata records, sometimes harvested automatically by OAI PMH, sometimes just manually uploaded. We then use the mapping tool developed by Forth, 3M tool, to map the individual data schemas from each of the providers to our own data schema, this AOCAT ontology. So that turns it into RDF AOCAT records that go into the triple store. There it's enriched by a number of other data streams. First of all, the mappings to the Getty AAT from the partner vocabularies. And here we use this mapping tool developed by Kerry and Doug from USW. So that has its own set of mappings, which again creates RDF records for the start and end dates and the period definitions that also go into the triple store. And also taking the data from Periodo here from their URIs and definitions. So from the triple store, there you can go into GraphDB, but that's generally more suitable for machines than humans. But we also, on top of the triple store, there are indices in open search now, which power the human interfaces. So the Ariadne portal, also in ADS over the last 3 years, we've developed sitting on the same triple store, a portal for a project called Unpath Waters, which is just UK maritime data. So that's a particular subset of the triple store, but showed the feasibility of building different interfaces on top of the same data. So that's a very, in a nutshell, introduction to the sort of how this came about and how the technology works. Key acknowledgements. Nice to see some of the people here in the call who've been responsible for aspects of that. It's really been a big team project over the last decade. So I will now stop sharing that and instead move on to demo how this actually works. So this is the landing page of the portal. You can see in the search box that's a live figure, constantly changing for the number of resources that are available. And it's a sort of hopefully reasonably intuitive type and hope type box, as you'd expect from Google, which users are familiar with. And if you just type something in there, it normally searches just all fields, which combines the description and some of the standardized fields as well. So if I start typing in there, so hopefully you can see I've started typing in hill, and it's doing an auto complete there and is looking for any of the records that are in the description or in the place or the Getty subject or the title contain that. If I switch to title, the result set changes. There's help information there about the search, of course. In common with a lot of systems, most people don't use the help, but it's there if you want it. So I'm actually going to, so I'm interested in hill forts, but I'm going to, for the best result, I'm going to click in on there for the Getty AAT subject, and you'll see that then comes up with just that definition. I'll just show you that there's a multilingual aspect to this because the Getty has translated these to other languages. So if instead I put in fort, and there we get, that's the Dutch word, so I understand, for hill forts, or forten op hin heuvel, I suppose. Forgive my pronunciation, but it comes down to the same thing. But so it allows a search on hill forts. Okay, so that's what I'm going for. So that takes me to this results list page. So I'll just, before I go into an individual resource, I will show you some of the features of this page. You see that's come up with 3,630 results, still quite a lot that I could go through by page. I can change the sort order if I wanted by relevance as well, but let's just leave it on issued date, so with the most recent additions to this at the top first of all. If we look down the side, there are a series of filters. The only filter that's on at the moment is the Getty AAT subject for hill forts. So there's a map-based search. I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. There's also a temporal search. Again, I'll come back to that. Further down, we have other sets of filters. So the resource type is this ARIADNE high-level type, which represents, in a way, types of archaeological activity. So you can see those hill fort resources are made up of a number of different data types in a way. There are some that are sites and monuments records. Those are generate individual records. Some record fieldwork. Some, in addition, have a fieldwork report. So the user could go and then download generally a PDF. Some include building surveys. Some are actually based on excavations of hill forts. There's a couple of the maritime ones. Those will be coastal hill forts, that's included with the maritime definition, and a couple where there's scientific analysis being carried out. There's the Getty AAT filter is opened up. So these are hill forts that also have other Getty defined things present. So if I also select lithics, so this is an and join for hill forts that also where lithics are also present. So here's an example, Eston Nab, where they've found both hill forts and lithics, and bizarrely an archdeaconry as well, apparently. I didn't know that. But I'll deselect that one for the time being. If I carry on down, I can also filter by the publisher of the data. This is the body responsible for making that data available online, not necessarily the owner of it. So some from ADS, some from Colleagues Royal Commission in Wales, some from ARUP, another ATRIUM partner, and also some from ELNEP, another ATRIUM partner, one from Bulgaria. Bear in mind, this isn't a complete set of hill forts in Europe. We don't have, we're working towards it. We don't have full European coverage yet. So there are many missing countries here. And it also shows one of the issues we still we do have a French partner in ARIADNE, INRAP, but because they've not mapped the French term for hill fort to the Getty term in the way that others have, they're missing from this. So I'm not claiming this is a sort of perfect search system. There are things that we want to work on and improve, and part of this is the enhancement in metadata that we're doing in ATRIUM. And then carrying on down, we have the contributor. Now, this is generally the people who owned the data and contributed it, but it's brokered often by others. So here are a lot of UK regions, individual archaeological units who provide data online via ADS. There are also some examples down there of data providers via ARUP in the Czech Republic as well. And then finally, these are the original subjects for hill forts in the various languages. So these are the terms, sometimes in the native language, that have been mapped to the Getty term hill fort. I guess these are the sort of Czech terms there. And further down still, the original dating terms, the cultural periods in the languages that we have the Hilfort resources available. So in this case, again, largely Czech and English. Okay, those are the filters. That's how you refine your search down. If I now go into a specific resource, I'll just choose the one at the top. That takes me to a resource landing page, which contains more detailed metadata about this particular data resource. So in this case, it's Atlas of Hillforts of Britain and Ireland, deposited with ADS by a researcher who's been reusing earlier data from another project. See that the map is very broad there because it covers the whole of the British Isles. There's a fuller description there, and then if we go down into the metadata, this includes the a DOI link. I will just click on this. This will open in another tab, which takes me direct now via the DOI to the page in ADS where that resource is archived with further information there. But by clicking on the downloads there, you can see that there are a variety of file types available. There's a PDF file reporting on the project. There are a series of looks like graphs in this case from it. It might be photos, and also there's a spreadsheet that users could download if they wanted to reprocess that data. If I carry on down, this archive's been categorized as both a fieldwork archive with scientific analysis. There's the Getty term. If I click on the I, that takes me to a page drawn directly from the Getty definition. There's the Getty URI, and they define hill forts as defensive enclosures comprised of ramparts and ditches encircling a fortified structure or central prominence, etc. And those are the translations in other languages for that term. Carrying on down, here are the when fields. If I hover over the question marks, that shows me the periodo definitions. So in this case, and hill forts should explain in British Isles are often reused in the early medieval period. So that's why this is also early medieval. So that's has been defined as early medieval with the time span, which is how we define early medieval, as 410 to 1066, and that's drawn from this authority, the heritage data link data vocabularies. And then carrying on down, in this case, the provider of that data is Historic Environment Scotland, but it names the individual creator and contributor. And each of these highlighted links allows me to do a search. I'll just point out the license information as well there. So this is a CC BY. But if I clicked on Mike Middleton, okay, so we've got two resources in ADS, well, to Ariadne, deposited by Mike Middleton, because he's also done a resistivity survey of a specific site in Fife. So that allows me to see all his. Ideally, we'd like to link these via ORCIDs so that it's an authoritative list. But let me just go back to that Hillforts primer. The other things I just wanted to show you there, as well as the different ways that you can download that. It says this resource is part of ADS archives. So this resource is a data set, but it's part of a broader collection deposited with ADS made available by Ariadne, which has at the moment got 3,843 records. And this is a collection level record containing all these research project archives that have been deposited. I can also let's go back to that again. We can also look for things that are thematically similar via different fields. So things that resources with similar titles or similar time periods or similar subjects and so on. So that's almost a bit like a sort of Amazon. If you're interested in this, you might also be interested in that. Let's do something different. I'll go back. I'm going to clear all the filters. So we're now seeing all 4 million resources. But I'll carry on with hill forts. I wanted to show another resource. So let me try make it a Getty search again. This is here carrying out the same search as I could have done on the landing page. If I scroll down, you'll see here there's a resource with an image. Now this is one of the areas we want to enhance in ATRIUM, because at the moment this only supports 2D images. So if I go to this particular resource for a particular site, you'll see that on the landing page there I can pull up a photograph, and this is from a I should explain, this is from a citizen science project. That's why it's called Citizen, but it was members of the public recording sites around the UK coast and taking photographs of them. This has been deposited with us to preserve it. So this is it's a hill fort site, but available here with the images. Now this is where, as we extend our media types to include IIIF and 3D and other file data types, we'll have viewers available here so that you can compare with the IIIF viewer or with the 3D hop viewer, so you can look at 3D and other file types. And of course, also the work that's being done on metadata enhancement in ATRIUM feeds into this. So often where we're wanting to extract more detailed terms and do mappings to the Getty, this is also going to be a much more automated process via the ATRIUM workflows. It's worth just pointing out on this one, because of course we're dealing with a particular site, Seaford Camp, the map has zoomed into a much more local area. I can change the size of that if I want to look at it a little bit more detail. I can also change the background. So for example, it's defaulting to an OSM map, but often for archaeological usage, it's nice to look at it in terms of a satellite background to see the topography. So I can select that instead. I'll go back to the small map. What it's also showing me is resources in the same area. The one that's highlighted with the red circle then is the one that I'm looking at the moment. I can hide the others, so it zooms in and I'm just seeing that Seaford Camp. But I can also look at the other ones. The one in red there, it's an interesting example. That's, in this case, an individual artifact found in the vicinity of Seaford Camp. It's red because actually it's represented by a bounding box. In this case, it's a find drawn from the Portal Antiquities scheme. I can go to the original resource there. So this is taking me to the British Museum database with that resource. But because this is potentially a treasure find, the precise location of it is being masked. And I know this is an issue in many countries, that you don't want to show exactly where an archaeological site is. So the actual location of that silver penny is somewhere within that 10-kilometre. I think it is about, no, that we can do 10 kilometres. I think that will be no, I think that is a 10-kilometre bounding box. Yeah, looking at the scale. So it's somewhere in there. Okay, I'll go back to the search resources and I will clear all filters now. I'll just go back to the filters down here. So this is with all resources, showing you the range of data providers. Let's select the NARA Research Institute, our Japanese partner. So if we click on one of their records, inevitably the description is in Japanese, but they have done a massive task in translating all their original terms to the Getty AAT. Looks, yeah, and this site clearly is part of a Japanese road development where they've got a number of sites going on there. If I look for another publisher, and let's take a Swedish example. So we've got two Swedish publishers, SND, and this allows me to show, if I click on the resource, no, that's not it. Let's try that. That one, yeah, that. In this case, they've provided a polygon, so the map supports polygons as well. So this is the footprint of the excavations, the rather strange shaped jigsaw piece, red outline, but across a railway development there in advance of that. And if instead of SND, I want another Swedish resource, the Rock Art Archives. And this is one of the types of resources we're going to be drawing on in ATRIUM for the comparison with the IIIF, because here we're going to set aside these images, beautiful images of rock art in Sweden, against images drawn from an ADS resource and volunteer recordings of rock art to allow the comparison of the different motifs. Go back again. The last publisher I will show you is quite a nice example of how we can, in effect, mimic a relational database structure in the portal. So Thanatos is Turner aggregator in Austria for information about early medieval cemeteries, and their data has been split into three types: the cemeteries themselves, classed as sites and monuments, the burials, and then within the burials, the artifacts. And so here from Thanatos, we're viewing all these types. But if I say I really just want to look at the artifacts to start with, and here there's a particular find of a necklace of 28 glass and silver beads. But that necklace was found, so it's part of burial 0191955, and there's clearly two artifacts in that grave. So that's now at the burial level. But sometimes in graves, you might have more than one burial. So this allows for that. I think in this case, yeah, there's only the one burial in this grave, so it's just taking me to a record higher up, but it's showing me all the graves in that cemetery this is part of Rudelsdorf. So there is the Rudelsdorf cemetery with some 240 graves in it, and that's the centroid for the cemetery, but with all the burials around it. Okay, so finally, I will just do a quick demo of the spatial and temporal searches that I mentioned earlier. And the best way to do that is to go to the advanced search page. I can apply the filters down here as well. So in this case, let's say I'm interested in maritime records. And first of all, I'm just going to zoom right in on the map and bear with me while I keep going and going, down and down. So I'm going to go down into the Irish Sea area. And eventually it's, as you can see, it's resolving into, well, I've come back up again there, but it's resolving into individual points. But if I'm interested in a particular area, I can use this tool to draw a polygon. So I'm interested in those. So that's take me down to 200 resources, which I can display as a results list, which we're getting there. Many drawn from historic environment at Scotland. Maybe these are just from there. Some from Manx National Heritage as well. So these are records, obviously, of shipwrecks. 5 Manx fishing smacks were wrecked on Tuesday the 9th of 24th of August 1802 near the Calf of Man. So that's allowing me to do quite a powerful spatial search. And instead, if I want to do a temporal search, let's say I'm interested in, with an artifact type query, so I'm interested in swords. So that's changing, so that's the date range of all the swords that Ariadne knows about. But really, I really just want to know about swords that are post-Roman. So I'm going to select that part of the graph, which is zoomed in just on a smaller number of swords, which again I can display as a search result. Now, so all these records, now 1,902, have swords. This is that shows you the power of the Getty search as a hierarchical thesaurus, because this excavation, this fieldwork archive, doesn't have sword in the metadata there, but it has blade. And so that will be a subset of sword lower down in the thesaurus. So you don't need to have the precise vocabulary term. So most of the others, I think, do have swords there. And there's an example with a rapier, a particular type of sword, again, a subcategory. So that is allowing that mapping to Periodo to pull out swords in absolute date range of a particular between, in that case, 0 AD and 1100 AD. If instead I am interested in a cultural period, and so I want to look at all Viking or all early medieval swords, I can do this type of temporal search instead by a time period. And this is telling me it's going to reset my absolute date search. And it gives me the option of selecting what we call temporal regions. So I'm interested in swords from the UK and from Denmark. So that's selected my regions, and it's giving me then all the cultural periods associated with those regions. Carry on scrolling down. Okay, so yeah, so for the UK, the period definition is that I want is early medieval. For Denmark, it's going to be the equivalent. It's going to be late Germanic Iron Age, early Viking Age, late Viking Age. So that's built up this search by cultural period for those 2 temporal regions with all those periods. And it's giving me the results both from the UK, and here's an example drawn from our partners in in Aarhus, another, incidentally, a citizen science metal detector derived data set, and showing me the, again, therefore approximate location of where this Viking age sword was found in Zealand, which takes me right back then to my original question of why I said we were doing this, which is really just to support my own research into Vikings. So that is a very quick demo, but the best way to explore the portal is to play with it yourselves, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you very much. We can. I think we're going to take. You're going to turn off recording now, Emily,
Yep.
and if there are any questions,